Welcome back to the dev blog for this month. Unfortunately, my laptop died, so we are going to have to go a little bit lower tech with the recording hardware, but the desktop, which I use, is fine. Unfortunately, the webcam is all I have to work with for this week. We will be upgrading again the audio next week. So I'm going to try to blaze through our bug fixes and features just to get to the good stuff. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on each one, even though I really like to talk about all the stuff that I've been doing. So the first one that we're starting with is re-implementing original behavior for default magazines. This is a pretty simple bug fix, basically fixing all the plutonium cells you've been seeing around everywhere. Technical reasons, I had to load basically twice. If you like, you can actually check out the pull request itself to see the details. Now this one, only process DOT if damage not equals 0, seems pretty technical, but all it did was fix the message you would receive saying, ouch, hurt, stop what you're doing, randomly. So, turns out, you actually were taking damage. You were taking 0 damage. Whoops. The next one is fixed drinking potions. This actually was a regression of the eat function, or no, not function, the eat activity. But I managed to fix it. I managed to figure out what's going on. It basically overwrote and stopped the spellcasting activity. Disposable wand ammo, it's a pretty simple JSON change. I think this is one of the few things that I missed when I was doing the nested containers JSON in the original pull request for nested containers. Activating spellbooks was another regression. This was the read menu when somebody implemented spellbooks being activated through the read menu. They changed spellbooks to be books, and when you activate a book, it tries to read the book. So I needed to make sure that read actually tried to learn a spell if it has the learn spell activity. Now, item mods can modify pockets is actually a half feature, half bug fix, as you can see in the solution there. Basically what it does is it allows gun mods and tool mods to add pockets. This fixed the battery compartment mod bug where you couldn't install a correct battery with a new battery compartment mod. Can spawn sealed is actually a pretty major bug fix with a pretty minor amount of code. Turns out I forgot to actually seal the container when spawned via an item group. It took me so much time to actually find this bug, and it turns out it was as simple as that. Magiclysm breach test, on the other hand, is something that you probably wouldn't have even noticed if you were a player. The online CI tests were failing because of mana touched, and I've been tweaking this mutation for a little while now, so we just needed to add some extra categories to the weak mutation, and we needed to add another mutation to mana touched, basically so that there was more of a balance of mana touched and non-mana touched categories in mutations. Deleting items on insert was another really important bug fix. It turns out I was calling the wrong function when seeing if something could actually fit into a pocket when you were using the insert function. So we won't be deleting items anymore when you're inserting directly. The comestible test is something that you will not notice at all if you're a player, but if you're a contributor and you've made recipes or foods before, you might have noticed this type of error message in the Travis CI. You'll see these three lines here: recipe ID, current recipe range. Those are pretty new, and they're intended to make it a lot clearer as to what the actual error is when you are contributing new code. The walking activity level is a one-line fix. I was talking to Irk with this BMR burning bug fix, And it turns out that walking actually is a moderate activity and not a light activity. But this BMR burning is basically the Harrison-Benedict equation is what was used before. However, what that did was estimate your calories depending on the estimation of how much exercise you've actually spent throughout the day. However, in code, we want to know how much exercise you're doing right now and over the next 30 minutes. That is a lot more accurate to use METs instead. This last bug fix is a user experience bug fix. When you're dropping items, sometimes you would drop things inside of other things when you selected everything to drop. This, however, will deselect the innermost items if you selected containers, so that it'll only drop the containers when you are dropping items. This is my flowchart that I use for Magiclysm development. First, I'm going to talk about how this flowchart works. So you can see that each thought, that's the rectangle with the name in it, Magiclysm, has 3 little nodes on it. The bottom node is child nodes, so everything beneath it are children of this parent node, which the top node will lead to. The side one are related nodes. The base classes have 2 axes that they lie across. The first is the harmony/control or domination axis, and the second are the axis of which they lie on. So the laws of the universe axis would be animist and magus, energy would be storm shaper and Kelvinist, and so on. The animist class cannot coexist with the magus class because it lies across the same horizontal axis, laws of the universe in this case. The animist is a harmony class, and the magus is a domination class. Each of the classes from the harmony axis and each of the classes from the control axis do not necessarily cancel each other out, but only if they lie across one of these horizontal axes shown by the arrows here. So Druid and Biomancer lie across the life axis, and they cancel each other out, so you have to choose one or the other. I will be talking about attunements that I alluded to in a previous video. But to understand attunements, we first have to talk about the Æthereum. In Cataclysm, there is a place called the Æthereum, or the Æthereum, as I like to call it. It is described as the place between the dimensions. And if you were to think of a dimension as a bubble, and another dimension as another bubble, the Æthereum is in between, but the Æthereum is the film of the bubble, the stuff that holds the dimension together. And this is where magic is. It is magic, and it allows magic to dictate the laws of the dimension that it is a part of, that it holds together. Now, an interesting concept of the Æthereum is that not only does it bind the dimension together, but it flows through all living beings. And that allows living beings with sentience, sapience, to use magic. Where attunements come into play is the person using the magic actually wears a groove into the Æthereum by using their magic. Now, we talked about the control axis, or domination, and the harmony axis accessing the Æthereum in different ways, but even then, they will still have an effect on the Æthereum. I'm not going to read this out to you. The link to this flowchart will be in the description, so you will have full access to be able to read all of this stuff as much as you want. But we're going to talk a little bit about some of the more interesting attunements that I've made in the past few days, actually, because I'm rather excited about it, and it'll give me a little bit more motivation to continue. So, Shapeshifter is one of the, I would call it, more uniquely named attunements. It is a Biomancer Magus hybrid, which means the Biomancer is amplified by the Magus. So if you look at the traits, we've got encumbrance penalties being reduced, and we've got degrading touch, which means armor pierce. That would be melee armor piercing. And we've got better social skills. And for spells, we've got some kind of spell that spawns acid fields and melts some terrain. I haven't really laid down the exact stats of it, but this is a really good vague description to lay down in JSON later. And a strong polymorph spell. Now, a little bit of explanation of what makes an attunement mechanically. The green here, you'll see that Shapeshifter is green, means that the attunement is complete in a conceptual way. We have a description, we have 2 traits. Shapeshifter gets a bonus one because social skills doesn't really count as a full trait, and 2 spells. I wanted the traits to be strictly positive and without condition, and I want the spells to be much stronger than the spells you would find in a random spellbook around the world. Because an attunement is meant to be a rather endgame Magiclysm feature that you would find, and you would decide to use the attunement or over guns. Because guns are a ubiquitous item in Cataclysm, we need to be able to balance against them even with the magic system. That will cover everything I wanted to cover today in this month's dev blog. I'm hoping that was as interesting to you as working on this code is interesting to me. And I hope to release attunements before 0.f. That's my actual goal there. Anyway, I will see you next month. Have fun.